this might be the most dangerous piece of misinformation that is currently circulating the internet. And I know that's a great way to start a video after a very long YouTube break, but I'm happy to be back. If anyone unsubscribed to my channel after my last video because you thought that this channel was going to be dead, you didn't listen. Because while I might not be doing YouTube full time anymore, I'm looking for other means of employment. I will still be going on YouTube and doing videos once in a while, but the main difference is it's not my full-time job anymore. I'm just doing it when, A, I feel like it, or there's something important enough. And that's also what I want to talk about today. A specific piece of misinformation that I have seen circulating the internet, as well as the press, general media, all summer. And quite frankly, it's terrifying. Just like, stick with me, but this is just really important information to know.
What are you talking about?
So one very popular angle with the press and the general media currently, I've both seen it in printed media as well as on social media, is the angle that the climate crisis is now cancelled. How convenient. We have spent, and by we, I mean the general community of environmentalists and climatologists and researchers and journalists and people that work with communication related to climate and the environment, spent decades trying to make governments as well as the general public understand that the urgency of the climate crisis is really not to be reckoned with. This is extremely serious. So when I see articles like these popping up saying that the climate crisis is cancelled, that climatologists or climate scientists have been wrong, or that the IPCC has now quietly revoked their worst case scenario, and as such, we're in the clear. Relax. It's fine. It's diminishing the urgency of the climate crisis. And the thing is, if we don't have the full story or the context, if we don't know any better, we might think, oh, how lovely. We can relax. That's fantastic. So just to be clear, what has actually happened is that the IPCC has adjusted their worst case scenario. Okay, so for this to make sense, let me explain who the IPCC is. The IPCC stands for International Panel of Climate Change, and they're gathering researchers and data from all across the planet. And it's important to note because some politicians, including a very orange one, has completely misunderstood what the IPCC is actually doing. They are the glue that holds climate scientists together, which also means that the data that comes out of this organization is extremely valuable because it is a direct window into what thousands and thousands of climate scientists are actually doing, agreeing upon, and working with. So yeah, any leader of any free country that pokes fun at or tries to diminish the work that this organization is doing is not only spreading dangerous misinformation, but possibly has also completely misunderstood what the point of this is to begin with. So what was it that this worst case scenario even predicted? So the curve for the RCP 8.5, the worst case scenario, predicted a staggering 3.5 to 5.5 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures by 2100, a projection dependent on a possible surge in fossil fuels globally. And just to be extremely clear about what this means, this doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing super well or that we're on the right track and thus therefore can relax. It just means that the amount of coal that was meant to be burned for this scenario to be plausible are not being burned, or nor will it be. The adjustment to the worst case scenario and why it's no longer plausible is because of human behavior, not because the consequences of climate change isn't severe or catastrophic. Like, these things are very much so still relevant. And I do see the complete irony of articles like these gaining momentum and popularity in a time where half of Europe is literally up in flames. Like, it's comedic at this point. Extreme and unpredictable weather conditions are literally knocking at our door, and we're just sitting inside like, happy that climate change isn't a thing anymore. Yeah. From a purely cynic business perspective, I understand why media platforms write articles like this, because there isn't a single consumer on the planet who wouldn't want this to be true. And I think there is a broader demographic of consumers that are also so tired of reading about climate change and reading about environmentalism and everything that has to do with environment, climate, planet, whatever. So many people are burnt out and tired because it's always bad news, right? And we want to hear good news. So having the angle be, well, it's actually going better than we anticipated. It's going so great that the worst case scenario is completely out of our reach. which is fantastic. That would be a great story if that was the whole truth and not just cherry picking a very specific part of a much larger question. Because while the worst case scenario is no longer plausible and is being adjusted, so is the most low-end scenario. The best case scenario is indeed also not possible anymore, which is a scenario where we stay on our 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise, which is where we are now, and we do not increase any further. We do not overshoot any further. That is all that has been deemed just as impossible. So, and I think that part is a little bit important. We love a good underdog story. We love a good comeback story. We love a good, enthusiastic, optimistic climate story. I would love that as much as the next person. It's just, that's not what is happening here. And the consequences of putting the news out there as if it's something positive is absolutely catastrophic. Anyway, the way these articles are positioning this logic is that because we have avoided the worst case scenario, we are in the clear. We no longer have anything to worry about. Even if we do not reach the worst case scenario, the consequences are still massive and we are still absolutely fucked. I guess that was not what you wanted to hear today, but yeah, that is just... Yeah, it is a very real reality that climate change and temperature increases are going to affect human populations across the planet. There will be places where we are not able to grow food, places where we are not able to live because of unpredictable weather conditions, places that will be dried out, places that will be flooded. It's already impacting our energy sector as well as our food systems. Like all of these things are happening, which makes it even more curious to me that there are still people that do not believe that this is happening when it's literally right outside your window. But I digress. It doesn't mean that we won't see these temperature increases. It's just the scenario that was made was based on the consumption of coal that is no longer plausible. But that doesn't mean that we won't see the temperature increase. Does that make sense? Can you now see why I'm so pissed off about the way that this was angled? Because the journalistic conclusions that's being made because of these headlines are so far from the truth that it's actually painful. You know, like that is why I come back to YouTube. It is to complain. How about that? But you might wonder, 3 degrees, is that going to be so bad? Like, I could imagine this weather 3 degrees warmer. That might be fine. So why are we this worried? Like, is this really something to worry about this deeply and be this annoying on my YouTube feed about? Like, should we really be so concerned? I'm just going to leave you with this. It's a quote by one of the world's leading climatologists. And he said something in the lines of, a 3 degrees Celsius temperature increase could be an existential threat to human civilizations. It has massive effects on everything from our energy sector to our food systems to aquatic life to biodiversity, flora and fauna that we surround ourselves with. And whether human beings remember this or not, we are still a part of an ecosystem that we are completely dependent upon. We cannot take ourselves out of nature or out of the ecosystem and thus thrive without it. We're deeply dependent on it. And if we destroy these systems, we destroy ourselves. There's been numerous press conferences and discussions with politicians and debates where I have wanted to scream. We kind of have to remember that humans are actually part of nature. We do not visit it. We do not look at it from afar. We are an integrated part of it. And if we destroy it, we're fucked. That's so hard to understand. Anyway, let's continue. There's this interesting and strangely politicized wave of hope core journalism when it comes to climate change and environmentalism that seems to have this main mission or purpose to tell consumers and readers to worry less about what is otherwise being said about climate change or what they are worried about or experiencing. But what sort of tends to happen is that we lean on this kind of narrative to the degree that the sense of urgency when it comes to climate action slows down. And that is the last thing that we actually need. We need to be incredibly vigilant as consumers to push our governments and legislators to more ambitious climate policies, because that is actually the thing that we can see is working. One of the things that is the most effective when it comes to actually reaching climate goals is ambitious climate policies. And we do not get those if we relax as consumers and voters, and if we do not engage with or push our politicians and representatives to more and more ambitious climate goals to show that this is something that we actually want. Now, what are some of the aspects that are the most important to focus on here? Number one, off the bat, is fossil fuels. The burning of fossil fuels is the leading cause of climate change. So any regulation and legislation, any climate policy that phases out fossil fuels in favor of other green sources of energy Then there are other things that we can look at as well that are also really important, specifically within our food system. We have animal agriculture as well as a privatized transportation system. Those kind of things are really important as well. Construction, the use of cement specifically, is also one of the most polluting industries on the planet. There's plenty of things that we can do and look at, but the bottom line is so many of these industries are intertwined with fossil fuels. Now, I know for a fact, and every time I talk about this, there will be someone in the comments. So let me just I'm very much certain that we won't be successful in phasing out fossil fuels 100%. We are very dependent on it still. Actually, our green energy sector is also dependent on it. So it's unlikely that we will see a reduction that ends up with zero. I understand that that is a bit of a utopic scenario. We also don't need that to happen necessarily, but a reduction, a significant reduction, more than what we're seeing now specifically. So any reduction is deeply important and necessary. So when you're hearing that the worst case scenario in terms of climate crisis is no longer viable, that is not because climate change is no longer dangerous. We still have a lot of work to do. And the best case scenario has also been eradicated. So there is that. Sort of an important little there we go. What else do we have? And to that, there is an entire other video that could be made about how climate policies and climate awareness has been weirdly, oddly polarized by polarizing politics. That believing in science and climate change and taking it seriously is weirdly liberal or Democrat. Now, I'm not from the US. I do not live in the US. I live in Denmark. But that kind of rhetoric and narrative sort of seeps into world politics for some reason, even though we do not divide our parties in this way. But that's tend to be the main way of looking at it. Because like we have tweets from Mango Mussolini that goes something in the lines of, well, the Democrats were wrong. They were just so focused on trying to sell us this climate change bullshit. And look, now they don't even believe it themselves. It's wrong. They failed. It's fake. Which sort of turns climate science into this weird part of identity politics. And it has nothing to do there. Weird. The IPCC's role is to assess the available scientific peer-reviewed literature relevant to climate change, currently running at approximately 50,000 papers and studies per year. The worst case scenario, the RCP 8.5, was developed as a no climate policy scenario, often referred to as a reference or baseline scenario. And it's used to sort of benchmark the effect of climate policies. If we could have actual journalists talk about this, that would be excellent. I hope you feel as enlightened as you feel furious. If that's the case, then you're in my boat. I'm currently unemployed, and it's honestly a fantastic time. I think I have relaxed for the first time in 10 years, and it has given me new energy and new motivation to actually go and seek something out and do something. And it's actually just what I needed. But coming back to YouTube and sitting here and talking about this stuff and trying to lay out the facts like this is also something that I have missed. And now I cannot wait to, first of all, edit this video and show it to you guys. But I also cannot wait to maybe make some more at some point. But in a new format where there's no pressure on when that's going to be, which has been a godsend for my nervous system. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Let me know down below how you like this video and if you want other topics like this. Have an amazing day. I will see you next time. Take really good care of yourselves. Until then, bye.